Hi, Acadiana. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Friday, getting ready for a big weekend. A lot of stuff to talk about out in the tropics. Fortunately, though, it's not anything that we have to be concerned about with here locally, at least over the course of the weekend and the early part of next week. But the Atlantic really seems to be waking up. Some big tropical waves are going to be coming off the African coast here over the next week or so. And one in particular has really been hitting the models, and you've more than likely seen a lot of crazy scenarios. And there really are some crazy scenarios associated with this next tropical wave that's coming off the African coast. But I will let you know that this is still a good 2 weeks away. So there's going to be a lot of changes. So if you see some viral stuff going on your social media feed, kind of disregard it right now. But at the same time, kind of keep an eye on it. One of the things I like to say when you're consuming social media, especially when it comes to weather stuff, and this includes my stuff too, is number one, make sure you check the posted time, because sometimes you get in your feed. I know my feed, I'll start scrolling through there and I'll see stuff from 2 weeks ago. So you really, first of all, need to pay attention to what time those posts are made, and then make sure they're from a reliable source. I feel like I'm a pretty reliable source with the experience that I have, but again, whatever goes out to your feed from me, I don't have any control over that. So make sure you're at least checking the date so that you're not seeing something that's a little bit older. But we're going to get to all that here in just a second. First of all, it's another hot one here in the hub city. We're at 88 under partly cloudy skies. Feels a lot more like 96. I think that heat index probably top out about 105, and there's going to be a couple of isolated showers and thunderstorms out there. Most of the action so far has been in the offshore waters. I'll go ahead and hit play on that. You can see there's a little bit of a sea breeze boundary starting to fire up there along the Cameron Parish coast, so we might get some scattered storms there, but I really think the bulk of the action is going to be over the southeastern parts of Louisiana and along the coastal section. So if you live north of the interstate, if you live north of I-10 or so, you'll probably see a little less coverage of rain compared to the rest of us, but I'm going to go ahead and keep that rain chance in there at about 30%. You can see there's a lot more rain along the Florida Panhandle. That's part of an old front and an upper trough that's going to keep things pretty soaked there over the Florida Peninsula over the course of the weekend. Some of that's going to drift westward toward us early next week, so perhaps on Sunday we'll see a little better chance for rain and some increased rain chances for the early part of the week. Real quick look at here in Lafayette and most of Acadiana. We're in good shape. Looks like all the roadways are dry, and we've got partly to mostly sunny skies, and that's confirmed there on the satellite imagery. But you can see all that moisture that's surrounding the Florida Peninsula. That's part of an upper trough that's going to kind of work westward. There's a decent amount of tropical moisture there in an old front. Right now, there is no indication that we're going to see anything developing as it moves farther off toward the west, but it is something that we're going to go ahead and keep an eye on over the next couple of days. But really, I think for the most part, this is just going to be increasing our rain chances here locally as we get toward the end of the weekend and the early part of next week. And the Gulf waters, really not anything major to talk about out there other than the heavier downpours are going to be east on the eastern side of the Gulf waters. A little bit of thunderstorm activity there around the Yucatan, but Central America is pretty quiet too. You got a little tropical wave kind of working west there near Nicaragua, and that's going to bring some rains there. So our wave heights, if you're going to do some boating either today over the course of the weekend, we are going to be looking at winds fairly light and seas not too big of a deal either. So if you're going to be out on the open waters or on inland lakes and bays, you're probably going to be looking at east or southeasterly winds over the weekend, about 10, maybe up to 15 knots. But remember, winds and seas are going to be a little higher around scattered showers and thunderstorms. Those seas on average about 1 to 3 feet. Real quick tour of the northern Gulf Coast. Another gorgeous day over in Panama City Beach. Beautiful waters there. A little bit of a sea breeze boundary kind of pulling in there around Orange Beach. Probably get some scattered thunderstorms a little farther inland. Dauphin Island, nice sunny day there. And looking back to over toward the west, over toward Galveston Bay, a pretty day there too. The Cocodrie cam is down once again today, but they're probably seeing about the same skies that we have here in the hub city. So there's a look at the big tropical weather outlook. You've got a low end chance for a bit of a low pressure that's along a front off the Carolina coast. It might have a little chance for development. element. And then out in the middle part of the Atlantic is 96L. By the way, Dexter is dead, so we don't have to worry about Dexter anymore. But out there, right there on the left-hand side of your screen, we'll go ahead and keep 96L's coordinates up there since it is an official designated disturbance right now. More than likely, we'll be following that next week, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're tracking two different systems, either two disturbances or maybe a couple of tropical systems. So you might be seeing some alternating numbers there on the left-hand side of your screen as we get into next week. So the East Coast satellite, we'll go ahead and start with this. There's a bit of a low pressure area out here, but there's an old front that kind of drifts here offshore and then works its way back off toward the west. And with that, there's been a little increased tropical moisture. At this point, it doesn't look quite as significant as what we saw over the past couple of days, but some of the computer models are still trying to organize this. But most likely, if it does develop, it's going to kind of cruise off toward this telestrator. Just loves to do anything it wants to, but there it goes. It's going to be kind of pushing off toward the northeast and then back out into the Atlantic waters. The Caribbean is nice and quiet other than that upper trough that's going to be affecting the Bahamas and Florida, probably some heavy downpours over parts of Cuba. This area down here that's right along the South American coast of Colombia and Venezuela, that little area of rain really soaked Trinidad and Tobago during the day yesterday, and that's going to continue to drift off to the west. Kind of a low pressure area, a bit of a tropical wave that's pretty far to the south, and that is going to drift off to the west, continuing to bring some heavy rains over Venezuela as well as Colombia, and then that's going to start to push over towards Central America. So all the action is out in the Atlantic, and that's where we're going to go to now. And we've got 96L that's out here, and then we've got this other big tropical wave that's off the Atlantic coast, or the African coast, rather, that we're going to talk about a little bit later on. So let's start with 96L. This one is probably going to stay a fish storm and stay out in the open waters of the Atlantic, which is good news. It doesn't look like any better organized today than it did yesterday. It is in a somewhat favorable area for development. The water temperatures are warm. There's not a whole lot of wind shear out there, and the hurricane models pretty much have this curving off toward the northwest and then eventually northward. And as you can see, it kind of bypasses the northern Caribbean islands, which are way down here. That would be the Virgin Islands and then going down into the Leeward Islands. So no threat there, at least according to most of the models. And as far as the intensity forecast, doesn't look like it's going to do a whole lot here for the next few days, but maybe beyond 3 days, it might have a better chance. And you got a handful of models that are tracking this on the upper end of tropical storm, and even a few of them getting this up to a hurricane. But again, that's not going to be for about another week or so. Now, the global tropics hazard outlook, this is kind of similar to the 7-day forecast, which is this one here. But what this does is it looks at week 2 and week 3, and this is only issued once a week. So this was issued on Tuesday, and it is showing increased activity there over the central and western part of the Atlantic Ocean, including the northern Caribbean islands, but more of a bullseye of a greater than 40% chance that something will pass through that area east of the Windward Islands. And I believe that is going to be maybe partially 96L, but more likely we're going to be talking about this next system that's coming off of the African coast. So those dates, August 13th, that's going to be a little bit too late for 96L. But for this next system that's coming off the African coast, that is the one that seems to be lighting up the social media right now, as a lot of the computer models are dragging this closer to the U.S. coast. We've had some models, and I'm gonna go back and forth between the different model runs to show you what's going on. But everything that we're looking at going out to 10 days would take this somewhere maybe north of Puerto Rico or perhaps as far west as the Bahamas, and then threatening the U.S. East Coast or perhaps crossing over into the Gulf. But again, beyond 10 days, that's really, really stretching it. Anything beyond 7 is kind of stretching it, but when you go out 10 days, it's a lot less accurate. But when we look at this map here, you can see that L that's in the middle, that's 96L. So if that were to come in our direction, we'd still have 10, 11, 12 days to be concerned about it and be able to watch it. But this next wave that's coming off the African coast, if you look at the scale down there at the bottom, that's 12, 13, maybe 14 days out. So again, we're talking about 2 weeks before we would have any kind of threat here locally. So nothing to worry about this weekend, but always a good time to kind of go over your plans. So let's get into it. And some of the models didn't run this morning, so there's going to be a few discrepancies here and there, but I'll try to pinpoint those out. But this is the GFS. This is the latest run. And go ahead and get the telestrator back out here so we can see what we're talking about here. And the number one thing we're going to be looking at here is 96L, which is out here in the middle part of the Atlantic, and this up here is what's left of Dexter. And then over here is that little bit of a low pressure area off the East Coast, and that's the wave that's coming off the African coast. So let's go ahead and just kind of advance this into motion slowly, and you could see that maybe the GFS toward the latter part of the weekend might have a little bit of a low developing from that system off the East Coast. As we continue to push it in, it also tends to kind of absorb some of the moisture from 96L, which by the time we get to this frame here, which by the way is next Wednesday, what's left of 96L is up here, and then we're also looking at this other system down here to the south. We're going to concentrate on 96L here for just a second. But as we go a little bit farther out, now we're getting into the end of next week, you can see that that disturbance that comes off the African coast is looking a lot more significant going over toward the northern part of the Caribbean. So I want to take this all the way out to that 10-day period. So there's, let's see, right there. That's 10 days out according to the GFS. So when you've got that is showing that wave off the Atlantic 10 days from now, perhaps being a hurricane somewhere near the Bahamas. So again, I like to trust going out to 10 days, but going beyond that, you really start to get into la-la land. And if we go back and forth between the latest models, so this is what we've got right now. And let me get the telestrator back out once again, and I just want to circle this little area right there. That way we can kind of pay attention to that one part. So that's where the model is showing the latest model run that we have right now. The previous one, you see the low kind of in the same place. So what we do is we look at the consistency from model run to model run. We're just using the GFS here. So we're going back in time for the model runs, and you see that out of 10 days, all of the latest models have some kind of a low within that circle. So that's some of that consistency that you want to look at. So if I were to say there's going to be a tropical system somewhere close to the Caribbean, the Bahamas, or even the Western Atlantic north of Puerto Rico in 10 days, based on the GFS and the number of model runs that we've looked at here, I would agree that we would probably have something significant there. Now, let me go ahead and push it a little bit farther to the east, and I'm going to show you the newest scenario. And remember, this is La-La Land, and this is all going to change, but you can see as you go a little bit farther out, you got a pretty big storm coming toward the northern Gulf Coast. So let me just back it up just a little bit here. Let's go right here. And then I'm going to go back a few more of these models just to kind of show you the difference of where that low is. So this is showing me what? Thursday the 21st. So this is just under 2 weeks from now. Look at the previous model. You see that? It's off the Carolina coast for the same time frame. So there's a huge difference here between the solutions on the GFS. So that's why we start to look farther out. There's the one before, there's the one before that, and there's the one before that. So you can see they're kind of all over the place. And that usually happens when you're looking at these computer models going out beyond 10 days like that. So let's go ahead and grab the Euro model. And this one, what I'm going to show you here, we're going to go ahead and rewind it, and I'm going to show you the latest one. Now, the Euro only goes out 144 hours every other run, and then it goes out, I think it's 360 every other one as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this farther out, and we're going to watch that wave again off the African coast. So the Euro model is pretty similar to the GFS, but remember the GFS or the European model on this one only goes out that far. So I'm going to have to grab the model that came before that. Let me get this here, right there. And that way we can continue going out to the 10 days. So the earlier model still had a pretty significant low, very close to where the GFS was, maybe a little bit farther to the north. But then as we go out into La La Land, going out 360 hours, you can see that there's something maybe there off the east coast of the United States. So again, let's go back to that 240. That's 10 days out. And then I'm going to go back a couple of models, and you see both those models have a low near the Bahamas, and the one prior to that has one near Cuba, and then the one before that has one way out in the Atlantic. So there's a little consistency from model run to model run, but as far as the consistency lasting a number of runs in a row, the Euro doesn't have quite as much. Let's see what we got with the Canadian model. That one did run this morning, so this is the 12Z. So let's just go ahead and follow along. You see the low out in the middle part of the Atlantic. And then as we go out 10 days, you still see that low there over the Bahamas. You see that kind of go back and forth there over near the Bahamas. So yeah, the Canadian model is also suggesting something working its way all the way across the Atlantic. Now, again, some of those discrepancies that I was telling you about because the model runs didn't run quite as well. If you look right there, you see all those blank frames. So the Canadian model isn't complete. So that's why you're seeing a bit of a skip there when I'm running through there. You see how the low is over the Atlantic, and then all of a sudden, pow, it's over Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. So it's missing several frames right now. And the Icon model, I don't have the 12Z, which is the newest one. So we're just going to go back to the 0Z, which is the one this morning. That way we can at least look at a 7-day forecast. And the Icon model also, you see that low, looks a little significant and then moving over kind of in the same direction. So we've got a lot of model agreement when it comes to if a tropical system is going to form. I would say yes, there's a really good chance there will, considering this tropical wave is pretty strong. Also, with that ridge of high pressure kind of reinforcing itself over the middle part of the Atlantic Ocean, rather than having something turn more to the north, I think it'll stay more on that westerly track like that. So that's why we were a little concerned starting, I guess, maybe 2 or 3 days ago about the possibility of something taking more of a southerly route compared to what we've already seen with some of the tropical waves that are moving off the African coast. So there is some agreement, but remember, we're still talking way beyond that 10-day forecast, so it's something that we'll just have to watch. Kind of check in over the weekend. I'll provide some updates on social media here and there. Not going to throw out the most severe looking type of model until I start to see some consistency where we really would need to be a little bit more nervous. But it is August, and we always kind of get on edge about this time around, and because of social media, and you get some folks that just throw the worst case scenario out there, it does tend to bring up the anxiety levels. But the water temperatures are plenty warm, and I am a little bit more concerned about anything taking more of that southerly track because of hitting some of that high heat content in the ocean waters. Those are the times where you get that rapid intensification and things are really heating up in the Caribbean as well as the Western Atlantic, and now it's starting to squeeze its way into the southern part of the Gulf as well. Did want to bring you up to date, though, that NOAA did a little bit of an update on their hurricane forecast, kind of like Colorado State University did earlier this week. So this is the August update. Really no change. The probabilities went from 60 to 50% on the chances that we would have just an above normal season. So that would be more than 14 named storms. And you can see they're still forecasting 13 to 18 named storms with between 5 and 9 hurricanes and up to 5 major ones over the course of the hurricane season. And there, just briefly, we'll look at the Colorado State one. This is one that popped up earlier this week. This is unchanged from their previous forecast. They're still going with the possibility of 16 named storms over the course of the hurricane season. So this is not anything to really be concerned about right now. I think you should go ahead and enjoy your weekend, but in the back of your head, kind of keep that plan in place because let's say this time next week, if we have something that's getting closer to Puerto Rico or the Bahamas, and still some of the models are indicating more of a track either toward the East Coast or the Gulf Coast, about a week from today is when we're going to have to start putting our plans in place. So there are several things that you can do over the course of the weekend. A lot of this stuff is available at the different stores. A lot of these things you can do at home without having to fight any crowds or anything. So I think it's just time to make sure that you have your plan in place and that you have, the T's crossed and the I's dotted. And then that way, if we have something that starts to head a little bit closer to us or maybe threatening us, you'll be a step ahead, because there's a whole different list that comes in when you're a week out or when you're just 3 days out. Because when you're 3 days out, you're starting to talk about the possibilities of evacuations and things like that, boarding up houses. Now, that isn't stuff that we're talking about right now. But about a week and a half down the road, there's the possibility we could be looking at something like that. So just make sure you got your plan in place. And as I said, just kind of keep an eye on the forecast over the course of the weekend. Don't worry about it too much. But next week, just kind of stick with me each and every day so we can go through together and find out the differences and the changes and make sure that everybody stays nice and safe. Let's hope everything stays out over the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean. That could still happen too. A lot of stuff can change in the next 2 weeks. Well, if you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics, please click the like button, subscribe to my channel, and also turn on those notifications. And remember, you can hear my forecast each and every day on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. And of course, over the course of the weekend, if you want to check in here and there, follow my pages both on Facebook and X. And of course, thanks to everyone who's watching here live this afternoon and all of you who have subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. Have yourself a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.